Excited. Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Tranfield. I am the head of the bioimaging facility at the VIB in Ghent. I see it now, Tom. We're in sync. Thank you. And today, what I'd like to do is present to you a paper that we actually published last year. It is our vision of how to future-proof core facilities. This was a bit ironic because I put this paper together in the first month that I had joined the Institute, and without knowing it, I actually built a model, this 7-pillar model, which is identical to the logo of our host university, the University of Ghent. So this was not intentional, but you'll see, I will walk through this model and we can discuss it in detail towards the end. So a bit about who we are, just to give you some context. Um, I work for the Flemish Institute of Biotechnology. Now, this is a life science research institute based here in Belgium, but it has a very interesting twist from the other organizations I have worked at. And the twist here is there is a very strong focus on not just life science, but also on entrepreneurship and really trying to accelerate the biotech ecosystem in this whole entire portion of Belgium called Flanders. We are spread across 5 sites. I am based in Ghent, but we also have facilities and scientific research units in Brussels, Antwerp, Leuven, and Hasselt. And across these 5 different sites, we are really working and focusing on 10 different research areas. Now, this is a huge spectrum. We have almost 100 groups. We have well over 1,000 people working on these projects, ranging from inflammation research to plant system biology, all the way into the arena of AI and a spectrum between it. As you probably can imagine, as a core facility community, in order to support such a broad spectrum of life science research, we need a broad spectrum of technologies. And so what we have is something, our core facilities as a unit are called the VIB technologies. And the underlying goal of our core technologies is really to be a foundation on which all of this cutting edge research is taking place. Within this, we have what I would almost call our standard units, our flow cytometry, our sequencing, me here in the bioimaging core in Ghent. And it's important to say, we have 2 bioimaging cores. I have a sister facility also based in one of the other sites, Leuven. So we're not unique in this. We are multi-tiered, multi-topic. And beyond that, what we also have is some more unique cores, like our single cell core, our core focus on spatial technologies. And then we have these 2 great cores. One whose job it is to go out and scout new technologies for us. So they're looking to really see what's coming in the future, to try and read what technologies are next, and they let us know what they think is coming, so we don't always have to focus on that in our cores. And then the other end of the spectrum, we have a core that is dedicated to helping us manage our data, because in microscopy, we are good at many things, one of which is generating very large amounts of data. And we need to manage this and work with it. So this very broad portfolio of technologies all come together to really support the research that's being done here. VIB has a very long history of core facilities. One of our cores just turned, I think 25 years old. Maybe I'm lying to you, maybe 20, more than 20 years old. So VIB has a strong history of core facilities. And I think for all of us in the community, me included, because I have been in the core facility arena since 2009, what we've really seen is there's an evolution in core facilities. So core facilities have gone from a novel idea to, I hope we can say, an essential infrastructure that many scientists really rely on for their daily research. It used to be a core was a place to provide high-end equipment in a cost-effective manner. Now it's really a knowledge center. And you'll see this as we go through this model that Saskia and I generated. The idea is not just to provide the equipment, but also the tools to use the equipment, the knowledge to prepare the samples, knowing what to do once you get all the data, knowing how to properly analyze it. It's really from beginning to end. We are no longer just a parking spot for equipment. We are a full service center where we help people from the very initial conception of their projects all the way through at times to the publication and checking their papers, they've documented the methodology correctly. So What did we do? Well, there was a special issue of the Journal of Microscopy all about imaging, light microscopy imaging, and to this we presented this model. Our idea was how to future-proof core facilities, thinking of how to build a consistent structure. This is my University of Ghent symbolic picture of this. So what we did is we have 7 pillars. They're all equally weighted. We will walk through them one by one. Those 7 pillars are standing on 3 very important foundations. So without dwelling on this overarching cartoon, let me start. We have 3 foundations. They are the operational, the framework, and the cultural foundation. Now, what is a foundation? A foundation is something that's central to the institute. It's not something that's specific to the core. At times within our core, we define our microscopes, we define our technology, we define the expertise we need. But we need a foundation for that to happen. And these 3 foundations are the operational, the framework, and the cultural foundation. So what do I mean by that? Well, our framework foundation, this is essentially the framework of your institute. And items that could be included in this, there could be more, are a modern human resources team. I know I'm mostly talking to a North American audience, and so if I had given this this presentation 6 months ago, I probably would have said a human resources team that focuses on topics such as neurodiversity and EDI. We now know those are topics not to discuss at all. So you need to be very agile in your approach to these. What is current and relevant from a human resources standpoint? Another very important area is an active grants office. This may sound very simple, but I've never been at any institute in the world that's had enough money for everything they wanted to buy. We always need to look for funding to support investment and something else to help future-proof our core facilities, funding to really support renewal of older equipment. It's not just buy the new stuff, it's making sure that our very important long-standing equipment is still in place. Once we have the money, we have to do something with it. So we need an efficient procurement team to help us buy the equipment in a quick way, so it's not just lingering around, but also in an appropriate way, knowing how to navigate the legal frameworks of tenders, knowing how to properly go through this that will not get us in trouble. We need to be able to tell our community what we're doing. Our community, I will explore in more detail, but those are everyone from our public to our stakeholders, to the people who fund us, to the community that we're trying to serve in our core. So we need help in terms of communications and then finance. Pete is going to talk a lot, I believe, Pete, about charging. And so if we're going to be invoicing, which I fully agree we should be, we need help to do that. Someone needs to make the invoices. Someone needs to follow up the bills been paid. Someone needs to be there to support this process. That's part of our framework. The second one, a bit shorter in words, but equally as important, is our operational foundation. Now, there are many items that could go here too, but the 2 I want to highlight in this one are clearly defined core facility budgets over time. I have worked in different environments where my core facility budget changed month to month. How do you plan how you're going to invest if you don't know how much money is in your bank account today, tomorrow, and in 6 months, let alone 6 years? So it's not, I would say it doesn't matter, it does matter, but it doesn't matter if you have €5 or $5, 50, 5,000, 5 million. It does actually, because you can buy different things, but at least knowing what bucket you have will let you plan in advance and work with that budget. When it's constantly changing, speaking from experience, it's a nightmare. Also, we are trained as scientists. We are trained on our technology, but we are very rarely trained on how to be good teachers, how to be good leaders, how to be good bosses, how to deal with conflicts, how to negotiate very expensive pieces of equipment. So when I talk about facility leadership, this is really what I'm talking about. And I'm not talking about individual core heads going out and getting training, but really operational and cultural focus on really training the community well to do the job well, because we need these skills to be successful. The third and final foundation is the cultural one. I've alluded, there's always crossover between these, but I've alluded to this a bit. But elements of our cultural one are a clear institute vision. This will really help orient the core. And I can give a great example. The VIB wants to catalyze biotechnology in our community. This means they want to help support startups. And because of that, there are mechanisms in place to work with industry to help actually support the needs of the startup industry and then help them transition into bigger companies and bigger infrastructures, if I can put it this way. We have an industrial liaison who really works with this and works with the companies to get the contracts in place, to make sure everything like the NDAs are signed properly. This is really important. And as that is part of our institute vision, it really makes sense to invest in that portfolio. If it's not part of your institute vision, that's not necessarily a need that your institute may have. So it helps us align with what are the objectives. Outcome focused policies. So, what are we trying to achieve and how do we get there? I've alluded to this, the culture of training and collaboration across core facilities and also within your core facilities. It's really important that this is just part of the matrix of the Institute. This fourth one, this is a whole topic on its own, so I'm going to say it quickly and we'll keep going. Policies on authorship. I don't think I need to elaborate. This is a black hole, this topic, but it's really important. This actually comes from the institute level and not individual cores saying, we think this, you think that. It should really come bigger than just individuals. And then the last one I have here is a strong culture of investments in core facilities and avoiding those standalone instruments being put into research laboratories. And I thought we were winning, and yet yesterday I had a meeting with a group who is pushing for exactly this because they don't want to share their microscope in the core facility arena. So there's still room to go on this topic where we're really having a cultural change where instruments are going into the cores and not hidden in the back laboratories just for politics and territory reasons. So that's our foundation. Now let's look at our 7 pillars. Technology, obviously, it has to be a big pillar. One could almost say our central pillar, but I want it to actually be viewed as an equal weight to some of the other pillars that we have, if not all of them. In technology, there are 2 categories of equipment in my mind. There is the foundation equipment. These are our bread and butter types of equipment. Often we would not call these interesting or fancy, but these are the kinds of instruments that we really need to do our work on a daily basis. And but they're not interesting. That's a sad thing. They're essential, but they're not something that you can easily get funding for. When we think of future proofing, this should change. There should be funding mechanisms actually in place to get the boring equipment so that we can support the other category of equipment, which is the advanced, or the Ferraris, as I call them. These are the specialized kinds of equipment, often called state-of-the-art equipment. And these pieces typically require more of everything, more knowledge to operate, more specialized building infrastructure to support, probably more expensive consumables to use, probably bigger service contracts to maintain and to operate them over time. They just require more. They're more high maintenance, if we want to put it this way. So in this world of the Fiat Pandas and the Ferraris, we need to really have a balance of the two, our foundations and our advanced equipment, I think, to really support the technology. And we need funding mechanisms in place to support the two, which we don't currently have, and that is a challenge. The second pillar, obviously, is our core facility team. If we take our equipment, it does not matter how fancy it is. If there is not someone to run it, it's just very sophisticated plastic, metal, and glass that really will do nothing without the help of the technical community around it. So our core facility team, I see the team as the expertise bridge between the research scientists and the technology. What's very interesting, though, is I don't think the core facility team, is the same as the research team. We need different kinds of characteristics in this team to really thrive. And so, what are examples of this? Well, in a research team, you want someone who's driven by scientific curiosity. We need the science also in the cores, but we also need technology curiosity. You need people, I hope I can say like me, who just get excited about technology, about microscopes, about the ins and the outs of how we preserve our samples. That's the enthusiasm we want in our cores. We also want people who don't need to stand in center stage. They need to be willing to support, to be service focused, and to be in the background. Because often in the core facilities, I always say to the team, if no one is complaining, everything is good. But you don't often get a basket of flowers at the end of the day. It's either complaints or silence. You don't often get that acknowledgement that people do get if they've published a big paper or if they've done something quite extraordinary in a research team. We have to be a bit quieter, a bit service focused. And then we have to help these teams develop their relevant skills. Obviously, technical skills are essential, but coming back again to what I said about the soft skills, about how to communicate, how to deal with conflicts. I don't know about you, but I have found that the minute you get someone, well, it's not a minute, but within a very short amount of time, you get someone in a dark microscope room, and it's like you've opened a Pandora's box. It's almost like a psychology session can unfold. And this is something at times that the team has to know how to handle because you can learn a lot more than you maybe know how to deal with in these sessions. So it's something to think about. And I put an asterisk at the very end of this because on the next slide, when I talk about career tracks, I think it's important to recognize the technical skills and soft skills. The level of these will also depend on the person's role in the core facility. It's very sad to say, I think, that my technical skills are getting less and less because I am doing more communication and leadership and outreach. My team at times is better at being at the microscope than I am, whereas I am the person who's out communicating, I'm out negotiating contracts, I'm out, working with different companies. So where you land, how this matrix unfolds is very interesting to consider. Number 3, career tracks. If we want to keep staff, we need to have a plan because we cannot just tell everyone the second middle bullet. You can't just make everyone a core facility technician for their entire lives forever and ever. It's really nice to be able to offer a whole career track and a career trajectory to allow people to grow in responsibility and expertise, to change in title so that there is some element of recognition of how they are evolving through the core facility and what they can give. Staff retention will allow us to have better stability within the core. It will also, I hope, allow us to have more consistency and high quality technical support because we don't always have this turnover. And it also lets us be the knowledge transfer units between the transitory communities. And by this, I mean, those excellent postdocs that come through, they develop new methods, they develop new technologies, and just when they're good at it, they leave. And so if we can also bring this knowledge into the core, we stop this tendency where you bring in a beautiful piece of equipment, you get a great protocol working, and then just when it's good, it falls apart. We in the core can help bridge this. And then this, going back to our foundations, though, this is going to really rely on a cultural and a framework foundation because we need a place that will promote and value training of all of our team members. And to really pull this off, this has to be done coordinated and maybe even initiated by the HR team. The human resources team will help implement this in a structured way across the whole institute. This is not a core to core thing. This is a framework. This is a cultural thing. Now, I will deviate just very slightly for 2 slides and say that if you are curious about this, the VIB really does have a matrix of scales, salaries, and different career tracks. Essentially, there are 4 categories: the core facility technician, the technology expert, the technology specialist, and the head of cores. And please do not make me define the difference between an excellent expert and specialist because I'm still, after a year, trying to totally figure out what those buckets are. But the point would be is that in each of those tracks, you can actually move up in levels. And even within each of those individual lines, every year you will progress slightly. So people feel their progression through their phases. And then if they jump in terms of experience or responsibility, they can jump columns, they can jump rows. There's a lot of potential here. So this is a nice thing. It can come right down to even having titles and CVs, titles on resumes, titles in email signatures. If people are looking at their next step, this has meaning. So there is promotion across this. If you would like to know more, there is a great publication that really summarizes this. And for full disclosure, this was done before I arrived, so I can take zero credit for it. But I think it's a very nice model to try and recognize that our core facility community deserves career tracks, career progression, and opportunities to continue to develop. Okay, number four, pillar number four is training. This is a really interesting one because I think we all think about training, but do we think about all the categories of training we have? So for our core facility team, as we've talked about, as I've mentioned, we need to train them in both technical skills and also soft skills. And how do we do that? Through workshops, potentially, maybe sending them to conferences, maybe targeted technology meetings. But there's another one that's very interesting, which is how do we train our team to train others, essentially train the trainer, because our core facility team is often training a humongous spectrum of people on instrument usage, data analysis, all different things. How do we teach them how to be good trainers? Something we don't often think about. Who else do we train? We train our core facility users, of course. We want them to be able to perform the techniques, operate the equipment as much as they would like. It depends on your model. Are you full service? Are you a walk-in core? How much do you do? How much do they do? This is very important, and we'll come into the two more columns down, the transparency pillar. But it's interesting to think, how do you train? Again, through small or focused workshops, maybe one-to-one at the microscope. And then the last group for training that we need to never forget is our public and our other key stakeholders. And it's really important that we can communicate. This is part of the outreach, how telling people what we do. And I don't know if it's considered training, but I would call it more communication actually. But one of the fun things I've been doing is I have been welcoming people to join the core, to see what we're doing within the core. And some of those people are actually our procurement office. I brought our procurement office in a few weeks ago and invited the lady who's in charge of buying all the microscopes to come and meet the microscopes she had bought. And it was really fun to show her, you've gone through this whole tender process, you've done all this work, this is what you actually helped us buy, this is the microscope. And it was really cool for her to see the 3D version of her work. Tom, I have 4 minutes. Is that 4 minutes until questions or 4 minutes till you eject me? I can't hear you, but you'll let me know. Yeah? Okay. I'll keep going. I don't have that much
Yep.
left. 4 minutes until questions, is that right?
Um, we can handle a few questions. Yeah, that's the
Okay.
actual 30 minutes total is the
Really?
clock.
Ah, see, I'm a
Yes.
chatterbox. Okay. The next one is technical support. This one was an interesting slide to put together because there's a lot of elements of technical support. It's no longer just help on an instrument. So the way I tried to show this is I think there are four buckets where we help people. And by putting those little breaks in the lines, what I wanted to symbolize is that maybe we do the whole spectrum or maybe we do single elements one-on-one. The four buckets are the first being protocol planning. So trying to understand what their question is and then how they want to address it. The second is guidance and execution or feedback on sample preparation. How are they doing what they're doing? The third is what microscope do they need? What kind of methodology do they need? I run light and electron microscopy, a core with both. So sometimes we actually jump between the different modalities depending on what the person needs. And then the final one would be data analysis and data archiving. How do they manage their data and how do they work with it? That would be the whole spectrum for, all the different services we can provide from start to finish. Core 6 is transparency. Now, this one is probably the item that many people did not expect, but I think it's an item that a core, a pillar, a value that we really need to have very prevalent. It's really important that we are transparent with our community on what we're doing. What are the possibilities and what are the limitations of the cores? And items of this are what kinds of elements do we help with? What do we offer and what do we not offer? Pricing, who pays, who doesn't? Is there a difference in the price? Access procedures, for example, is there a difference internal versus external? How does a person access the core? All of these different items, I think, should be very clear and very transparent to the community in a way that people know what they're getting into. And one that I have almost at the end, which is facility support hours, is also very important because people should know when they can get help, when they can get service, and when they will not expect anyone there. And this will help avoid confusion and I would say small conflicts between the core and its community. And then our last is this, us, community. No core facility stands alone. It's really important that we reach out beyond our walls and we interact with our colleagues. And it's also important to think about who our community is. So it's the researchers that we support, of course. It's the services that support us, like our grants office and our purchasing offices. It's you guys, the international technology community that's supporting us as we work together. And then I always say we cannot forget our technology developers, our microscope companies, our providers. Without them, we really don't have much. We really need to acknowledge the importance of these members of our community. And so that is our model. And with that, I am very happy to take questions and to discuss next. Here is my email because I'm a chatterbox. So if you want to email me, I'm very happy to answer emails after. I see Alice has her hand up. It's nice to see you, Alice.
Very nice to see you, Erin. Very good talk, and all you talk about all the aspect of the core facility. I think is a very good model, and that's what we're very grateful to have this paper writing down. Everybody should have a guideline on that. One thing I think I want to get your opinion about. I think is like a conflict issue in different cores, is regarding the sample storage and the data storage. So some cores, for example, us, we keep everything in our core because we know that once we give sample to each individual lab, they tend to lost, right? So we keep everything. But then along some other lab, then they decided it's your project. We finish sample prep, we get back to you, that's your responsibility. And also in terms of data, right now become a more and more issue because data storage is very expensive. So what is your opinion about, what is the best way to storage the data? We still keep everything, but there's a different policy at the school right now because the PI need to pay for their storage. We don't need that, does not need to be paid, but that will be an issue along the way.
Yeah, this is a dangerous one. So I can tell you in Portugal, where I was before this, and also here in Belgium, I have roughly the same policy, and it wasn't actually fully defined by me. So there is cohesion in this. For electron microscopy, at the moment, we're keeping blocks, not grids, because you can always generate new grids, but you can't always generate new blocks. So we always have the blocks, and if you store them well, they don't take up a ton of space, physical space on a shelf. And so we have a system. We're actually going to reorganize the lab here in Ghent over the summer to really try and minimize this, maximize the storage we can get in a small space. In terms of data, in both cores, we were storing the data for people, but this is dangerous because then if you've done electron tomography, then what you'll end up having is people doing all these intermediate files, and a 10 gigabyte file becomes 100 gigabytes of random mess that doesn't need to be stored. So we are pushing this back towards the users because it is their responsibility to maintain it and archive it. And I think it should really be within their cores as a unit. But this is a work in progress. As you said, a lot more institutes, here included, are starting to charge the PIs for this. And of course, they don't like this, but we cannot be responsible for maintaining data across almost decades of time, it gets to be too big and too cumbersome. So that's my perspective. I saw Pete chatting in the chat, and he'll tell us when he presents if he agrees. Thumbs up. Okay, good. Thanks, Pete. I'm glad I matched well.